What's going on, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the Phillies Nation Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Heller. Um, Coming at you, not too much is happening. The Phillies might be interviewing some potential candidates for president of baseball operations, some other hires throughout the league that we'll talk about a little bit, and then just some of the usual offseason stuff because it's that time of the year. Some would say the greatest time of the year. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Ty Daubert. Ty, what's going on?
Not much, like you said, not a ton going on with baseball off-season stuff. It seems like the basketball moves are the ones that are really coming in as of late. Baseball, other than the blockbuster Drew Smiley deal with the Atlanta Braves, it's mostly just been a lot of front office talk for the most part. But hey, that's fun to talk about too. Not everything has to be big blockbuster trades and everything like that. So we'll get into it a little bit throughout this episode.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot, like you mentioned, the NBA. It's like just they have the deadline and then or the free agency period. Obviously, this was different because they had like a no trade period for a while, and then they started it up right before the draft. But um, I think I feel like baseball should explore maybe like free agency doesn't begin right after the season ends and they I don't know, they put a date maybe at the winter meetings. I feel like that would make it more entertaining for fans and because you get that flurry of moves right as soon as the period starts. I don't know, what do you think about that, more like the NBA and the NFL does?
Yeah, I think maybe something like that would work. I've seen the idea floated of like a deadline they have to sign players by. I don't like that. I don't think that would work how people think it would go.
Oh, that
But
would not work at all.
no, because then players
Guys
just
just
wouldn't get
wouldn't
signed.
get signed.
They just wouldn't get signed. It would be bad. It would not work out well. But yeah, I think pushing it back closer to the winter meetings and then all those moves get announced at once, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. But it is how it is now, and there's nothing we can do about it until we're put in charge, which we'll
Soon.
see when that happens. Yeah. So let's dive in. So a couple, like we mentioned, a couple front office things happened this past week. The Marlins hired Kim Ng to be their
GM.
GM. Okay, right. And it's it's a cool hire. It's the first female GM in the
The
four.
first Asian American woman to be
Yeah, and
hired in Major League history.
yeah. And I don't think we should be giving um like Major League Baseball or the Marlins too much credit here. Kim Ng has been qualified for this position for years. And I think that, and I hope that this will kind of get the ball rolling more for women to get roles like this more throughout baseball. Obviously, it's a great hire, and it's good that it happened, but it happened too late. So instead of applauding teams and the league for doing this, I think we should make sure it gets the ball rolling. What do you think about the hire?
Yeah, I mean, I saw some things like Major League Baseball's official accounts posting things about it being a historic hire, and obviously it was. Like Kim Ng's hire was clearly historic, but did feel a little bit like patting yourself on the back for something you caused. Like you, Major League Baseball, are the reason, and the systems you kind of have in place are the reason that there never has been a woman or an Asian American in a GM role. The systems you have in place are the reason for that, and you are the reason that this is a historic hire because of the obstacles you've put up for these kind of people. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. But obviously, a great hire, a historic hire.
Yeah, I mean it's really, you look at her resume and you wonder like how was she not hired well before, but in any case, she was hired. A couple more moves. So Steve Cohen's purchase of the Mets became official. First thing he did, cleaned house. So general manager gone. Brody Van
Wagenen.
Yeah. Brody Van Wagenen. I don't know if the Phillies will hire him. I would lean towards probably not.
Listen, whenever you get the chance to hire a manager who lost a star player, I think you have to do it. When he lost, when they just released that they lost Yoenis Cespedes during the season, that was, I don't even know what a day that was.
Crazy. Yeah, that was
they brought Sandy Alderson back.
Yeah, right.
I as team president or president of baseball operations.
It's unclear.
It seems like he's kind of going to do the Andy McPhail thing, where he's going to lead the way on the search for a new GM. Now, obviously, Mets fans might not want to hear the Andy McPhail comparison because people have certain thoughts about Andy McPhail, but I think that's kind of the role of the established veteran executive to come in and find the next wave of people to run the front office. Alderson was obviously with the Mets before during their run in 2015 and things.
Yeah,
like
we'll
that.
see. We'll see. I think a lot of the names that have been mentioned as potential GM or president of baseball operation candidates have been linked to both the Mets and the Phillies. So we'll get into that a little bit. One more thing before we get into the Phillies. Perry Manassian, who's assistant GM for the Braves, got hired by the Los Angeles Angels, which, that move and the Marlins hiring their GM all just go to show that people are willing to uproot themselves, even in the midst of a pandemic, if it means they're becoming like a GM or a president of baseball operations. So in case, any unnamed people weren't sure if they were willing to do that. But on that note, Jason Stark of The Athletic at the end of last week reported that the Phillies are actually starting interviews for the position of president of baseball operations. So
the way the report came out, it seemed like they were looking at kind of bigger names. That's what they were searching for, kind of a not up and coming people like maybe Clentak was when they hired him, but more established names for a president or GM role.
Yeah, and that makes sense in terms of what we thought they were going to do. We talked about it when Clentak stepped down. It's the same thing as the manager search after they fired Kapler. I think generally teams will go from one extreme to the other if something doesn't work. So we'll see. I mean, there are a lot of names out there. I know John Heyman mentioned Eric Neander, that they might be interested in him. We'll see. He hasn't really said if he wants to, or he hasn't indicated, I don't think. This was from Kent Rosenthal of The Athletic, that he wants to leave the Rays, but he's a name that Phillies fans have talked about a lot. Destiny Lugardo of Phillies Nation wrote an awesome article detailing why they should go after someone like him. I think Stark mentioned like Chris Antonetti, guys like that in his article.
Mike Hill.
Right, yes. Mike Hill, Marlins former president of baseball operations. So, I mean, it seems like they're not casting a wide net, but there are a lot of names out there that might make sense, and I don't think I would be surprised that they would hire. Is there anyone who sticks out to you that you think you have any inclination that
I think Hill did a good job with the Marlins. Obviously, they made the postseason this year for the first time in a very long time, and that was kind of him putting together a pretty solid team. And, who knows what happens in a full season. They probably don't make the playoffs, to be honest. But he put together a pretty good team. And during that, he probably knew he was on his way out, that he really wasn't part of the front office that Derek Jeter would want to assemble. So I think that's somebody you have to take a look at. He's acquired a lot of good young arms over the last few seasons, and the Marlins look to be on the come up. So I think that could be a pretty good option for the Phillies, somebody to interview and potentially hire.
Yeah, I agree. And he got some really talented players, even though the Marlins didn't make the playoffs for a while. There were some really, really talented players that went through that organization. Think of guys like Jose Fernandez and Giancarlo Stanton and Christian Yelich and Marcell Ozuna. They had a solid core there, and maybe if they spent money, things would have gone differently. But let's move on. So yesterday, president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs, Theo Epstein, stepped down. His contract was ending after the season, and he was expected to, leave after the season anyways. So I don't know if it was a big surprise that he stepped down. But he wrote like a memo to his friends and colleagues that said that he wants to take the year off. Obviously, he's already been linked to the Phillies. Bruce Levine of a Chicago radio station, I think 670, tweeted yesterday that the Phillies are going to aggressively pursue him, but who knows? Do you have any thoughts?
It kind of seems like he's going to go on the Billy Bean route of retiring from baseball operations and maybe going in like the team upper management kind of venture capitalist route. I think I saw a report from Bob Nightingale that maybe Theo would get involved with the potential Nashville expansion team. I don't know if that's true, just a possibility. So it kind of seems like he would maybe be invested in or be trying to invest in teams, maybe an ownership stake, as opposed to just being a general manager or president of baseball operations.
Yeah. And we'll see, if that holds up, if that's what he ends up doing. I wouldn't be surprised even if he waits a season, if he just accepts another role as president of baseball operations, and maybe he gets some ownership in a team, a little bit of stake too. But I maybe he's not going to wait a year, but if he does, I saw some people on Twitter suggesting that he would be worth waiting for the Phillies. Maybe if they weren't, where they are now, and that they have a core of players in Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, who are all really in their primes right now. I don't think it's wise to waste a year of these guys.
Yeah, we've said it a million times on this pod. Like, their time to win is now. That's where their core is at, and they need somebody right now to figure out how they're going to add to this core. And they have a huge decision coming up on JT Realmuto on whether to re-sign him or how they're going to replace him. And I think having someone in charge that isn't going to oversee the next 4 years after that or so, I don't think that's the smartest move. Would you not want the person you see running your team long term making that decision? Like, even if you're just worried about that decision alone, only JT Realmuto, wouldn't you want the future of your organization making that decision?
Yeah, exactly. And I think obviously Theo Epstein, he broke curses in Boston and Chicago and all of that. There are other really good candidates out there right now. The Phillies could try to.
The thing with Theo also is obviously he is the curse breaker. He's the king of breaking curses. But he also, both places he's been when he left, they won World Series, obviously, but they weren't great situations when he left. Like, the Cubs are not looking great right now. The Red Sox had that fried chicken eating incident and all.
There was some incredible content from the Red Sox over those couple of years with who's the manager? The Mets
Valentine.
Guy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, everyone hated him. And then they won a World Series again in 2013, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I don't really care. Like, I think the goal of sports is to win championships. Obviously, you want to be able to sustain that. In an alternate dimension, maybe the Cubs went back to the World Series the next year. Like, he put together teams that went to the playoffs, several years in a row.
No, yeah, so, I agree. It's just like, we use a lot of people say like, oh, you can't hire Dave Dombrowski. Look at the situation that he left all his teams in. And then Theo Epstein it's not too dissimilar. Like the Cubs they're going to trade away some of the best players in their team's history because they're just kind of a mess right now. That's what's going to happen. They're going to trade Baez. They're probably going to lose Bryant soon.
I saw him listed as a non-tender candidate in the MLB
I
trade
don't
rumors.
I don't think that one's too likely.
They might trade both of them though. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like obviously
right.
Theo did a good job putting together a World Series championship team. Like one of the biggest stories in sports of all time. But just a few years later, it's not looking as great. And, you know, I'm not calling him Dave Dombrowski. Like they don't value the same things, but I think we have to be a little bit more consistent with how we view some of these executives.
Right. And I mean, it's also just like realizing how impossible in any sport it is to sustain success. Like how many teams are able to go back to the playoffs every single year? We've seen the Dodgers do that this decade. No one else has done that.
The Dodgers have been the best team in the National League for like 10 years. And up until last month, they were like considered losers. Their thing was that they are losers, that they lose. All they do is like have good seasons and then lose. It's just how this works sometimes. It's not a guarantee that you're going to win the World Series every year. I obviously am aware of that. And it's very, very difficult to win a World Series.
Right, exactly. Which is why you hire guys who can do it. Theo, one guy, I think, and I'm not saying anything anyone hasn't said before, but I think if you're going to hire someone now, I think you just go to, a guy like Chris Antonetti, a guy like Eric Neander, someone who is in a smart organization and knows what they're doing. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. Hopefully, I think it looks like things are going to pick up there within the next couple of weeks.
But... Yeah, it feels like what were they waiting for though?
Right.
What were they waiting for? It doesn't like teams are. I don't know. I don't get them sometimes. Yeah. They also don't really leak anything ever. That's kind of the thing with them. Things come out of nowhere. So maybe they have been doing this for a little while and nobody really knew. I guess that's a possibility. But from the outside, it does seem like you were thinking on this for a really long time.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on. So, as I said, we're going to get into some more off-season-y topics here. The latter half of the episode. And next thing I wanted to talk about was so I wrote an article, hasn't been put on PhilliesNation.com yet, but looking at some former Phillies who didn't play with the Phillies last year. I've played for them in the past. Who might make sense to who are free agents and whether or not they make sense to return to the Phillies this offseason. So we'll start by talking about some of the position players. First guy we should talk about, I think, is Freddie Galvis, shortstop. Came up in 2012, played here through the 2017 season. Didn't really get a ton of playing time until Rollins left, which was after 2014. But I think a lot of people loved Galvis and a lot of people hated Galvis. I'm talking about Phillies fans. He's pretty good defensively, not a great hitter. A little bit of pop, and
you've all seen the Chapman walk-off. You've all seen it.
Yeah,
he has some pop.
Yeah, and he's been a better hitter the past two seasons since they traded him.
Yeah, he's been a little he became a kind of a power hitter like he wasn't early on in his career. Not that he's going to hit 40 homers, but he has some pop. He really does.
Yeah. He was outpacing Bryce Harper through the first 3.5 months of the 2019 season, which was a really funny bit for people. The Phillies just
for
signed
people.
Harper.
Do you mean for you? It was a funny bit for you.
All right. Maybe. I don't think he'll cost much of anything. I don't think he's a guy a team wants to a playoff hopeful team would hope to sign. But my fellow host Ty Daubert recently wrote an article about Bryson Stott. Check it out on PhilliesNation.com. Bryson Stott might be ready relatively soon. So if they just want to sign a 1-year stopgap kind of guy, I think Galvis might make sense.
Yeah, I think that I don't see it happening for sure or anything, but he's somebody they could look at. I think they would probably want somebody if they're going in on a 1 year. Now, let me kind of rephrase. If they keep Real Muto, I think that Galvis is more likely. But if they don't keep Real Muto and then they can't keep or don't keep Gregorius, I think somebody like Simeon or even Simmons is more likely. Andrelton Simmons, I think that's more likely. Somebody a little bit better than Galvis.
Yeah, I agree with that to a point. I don't think either of those guys are taking a 1 year deal because
I think Simeon could because he was pretty
right.
bad last year. I think he would want to do the Gregorius thing.
We'll see. I think I don't know how much players take like future free agent classes into account, but Simeon takes a 1 year deal and plays the same way he does this year. There's one of the best free agent classes of all time, all at the shortstop position next year. So I don't know that maybe those guys are more open to taking a 2 or 3 year deal, and I don't know if the Phillies are going to want to give a 2 or 3 year deal when or if they are as high on Stott as we might think. So we'll see. Um, but another middle infielder who was a Philly through the 2019 season, Cesar Hernandez. He played pretty well for the Indians. It was just like
he was good. He was good, man.
A good Hernandez year. He hit lead off a little bit, hit second a little bit. He won the Gold Glove, which we all watched Cesar Hernandez. He was solid, except for the times that he forgot how to field, which did happen more than once. But it was kind of surprising to see that he won a Gold Glove.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it like you can't really eye test defense as much as people like to think they can? It's tough to tell. Like
you can eye test everything.
It's tough to tell like how good somebody's range is sometimes, especially in it was a small sample size season, so it doesn't surprise me that he had a good stretch of 60 games at second base. Like that's not shocking to me. I guess that kind of goes down last year as a pretty bad non-tender, especially considering
Kingery.
how Kingery
All
played.
right. Here's the thing. I don't think it's a bad.
I think the process was good. It just didn't turn out.
And I think it ended up fine because really what happened, they didn't really have great production from center field, which is somewhat unrelated unless you want Kingery in center field. But Segura played awesome at second base. Gregorius was a really good signing, and Bohm, maybe you can't field all that well, but he was a big reason they were in it through the end. So
hey,
the process.
Hernandez played center field in like 2013. They sent him down to Double-A to go get work in center field. He came back up and played center. Yeah. Galvis could play the outfield too.
Roman Quinn can play shortstop. People forget that, but so like on that though, I think the way the Cesar Hernandez signing would make sense is if they were. I really don't see this happening, especially since they just moved on from him. He would be like a really good option. Like we said, he had a great year last year, and we like anyone who watched him. He's a good player. He would be a downgrade from Gregorius, who he would essentially be replacing, but like he's still a solid part of the lineup. Could hit leadoff when McCutchen needs a day off.
He's just like boringly good and has been for his whole career. He's so boringly good.
Right. And the way you sign him, you move Gene Segura back to shortstop. I don't know if they want to do that after he was really good at second base and not great. He wasn't bad at shortstop in 2019, but this will be 2 years later, So,
but the thing is, he was great at second base, and he has been before. I think 2016 with Arizona. But I think they knew he would be great at second base, and they have still kind of insisted on Scott Kingery playing second base a lot. So who really knows if having Segura at second is any kind of priority?
That's true. So then, if you put Segura at shortstop, Cesar Hernandez at second base, you either slot Kingery into a super utility role, which might make sense right now.
I think that's his best role.
I think so. Yeah,
that's probably what he is at this point.
Yeah, he really had one good stretch in 2019, and outside of that has been one of the worst position players in baseball. Maybe he plays a lot of center field for you. He slots in wherever when a guy needs a day off. He can really play any position outside of 1, 2, and 3. So we'll see.
Hey, he played. Come on. He played one. You
Oh,
know he played one.
he did. He can pitch. He can pitch for you if you need him in a pinch. Um, so one last position player to talk about. The unofficial king of multi-homer games, some would say. Spent 1 year with the Phillies, 2019. Brad Miller. Um, so the Cardinals signed him this past offseason to a $2 million deal. Ended up obviously being less than that because of the shortened season. I think he had three more multi-homer games. He played. He was a DH for the most part. Played a little bit of third base, and then like played like a game each at shortstop and second base. I think he makes sense for the Phillies if there's a DH. Which, by the way, what the heck is going on? We're like a few weeks into the offseason, teams are signing players. We don't know if there's going to be a DH in the NL.
This is like more egregious than not knowing the playoff system until the first game of the season started.
I don't know if it's more egregious, but
it's more egregious. Like, it's definitely more egregious.
It's
teams are signing players and they don't know if their position will exist.
Right. Yeah. So really, I don't know if there's a spot for Miller on the roster if there isn't a DH, because he wouldn't get a ton of playing time, and I think he's proven over the last 2 seasons that he's good enough to get playing time.
If there is a DH, just imagine Jay Bruce on the Phillies last season, but instead it's somebody younger, healthier, and probably overall better. That's kind of what Brad Miller
he can
is.
A little more versatility. Did Miller play a little bit of corner outfield for them?
Yeah, he played left field for them.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Bruce was good in left field last year. Was. Like weirdly good.
But I think if you look at the numbers, like he always has been kind of decent in the outfield,
which is just surprising. He seems
because he's like slow. He looks like he should be really slow.
Yeah.
And he probably is. I can't imagine he's actually fast or anything.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have any thoughts on Miller? I think he makes perfect sense. He can play third if you want to DH. Boom. He can DH. He can maybe play second. I don't know. Play a little bit of corner outfield.
Anyone who's listened to this show before, anyone who's followed me on Twitter or read my work, you know my thoughts already. They should have never let him walk. He was too good. In like the last week of 2019, he just went off. It was insane. He was insanely good. Like you said, the king of multi-homer games. Brad Miller, they should have never let him walk. He's too good. He is just like the greatest bench player of all time, but it's just like a good starter. That's his role. And somebody like that is always destined to become a folk hero if you could just come off the bench and go off.
He already
is.
But
then you add the bamboo. You add the bamboo.
Yeah. The tongue out on the homer. I guess the Mets like
no batting gloves.
Yeah. He has all the makings of like a playoff hero if the Phillies ever make the playoffs, something like that. But yeah, so moving on to some pitchers who are available who used to play for the Phillies. We'll start with the most obvious one, and that's Cole Hamels. Obviously, he spent his first 10 years of his career here in Philadelphia, and then was traded to the Texas Rangers. And then at some point flipped to the Chicago Cubs, and then became a free agent and signed with the Atlanta Braves. This past offseason for, I think, a $18 million deal over 1 year, which seemed a little bit steep at the time. And he only pitched in one game. He dealt with a triceps injury, and then pitched in one game, and then had a shoulder injury. He's 36, going to be 37 next season. Do you have any preliminary thoughts on if the Phillies should explore signing Cole Hamels?
They should not sign Cole Hamels. They need more of a sure thing. It would be cool. It would be a cool story. I think that fans would really like it. I think Hamels would also like coming back, but I just don't think it would work out. Older pitchers get injured. You saw it last year with Hamels. You saw it the year before with Hamels. Injuries, they hurt older pitchers, and unless it was a really small contract, I don't think it would be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a lot of solid options out there to be maybe not even your fifth starter, but like your third or fourth starter. They're replacing Jake Arrieta here, so they can definitely upgrade the rotation at not too high of a cost.
And the rotation for 2 of the last 3 seasons was really good.
Yeah,
like people kind of sleep on that. And
right.
if you can replace Arrieta and get any kind of upgrade, I think that is like probably a big strength of your team.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like if it's cheap, maybe he doesn't find like the deal he wants, and maybe he only gets like $3 million. Then I think I would be in on him at that price,
Yeah, I
because
could see it.
he's for the most part he's like still a solid pitcher. I mean, you would hope he could stay healthy, and it's definitely a risk. So I think they should probably look elsewhere. I know fans would love it and all that. I understand that. Playoff hero was here for forever, but I don't see it making sense for where they are right now. Yeah. So another former starting pitcher, only pitched in 4 games as a Philly, Charlie Morton. So they traded for him before the 2016 season. Gave up practically nothing to the Pirates for him. He came to the Phillies. He was throwing 97 miles per hour, and then he got hurt after 4 starts, in which he looked pretty good. And then he went on to go the Astros, and then the Rays. 2 years at each organization. Finished third in the Cy Young voting in 2019. And really overall has turned into one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. He is known as Mr. Game 7. People forget that. I don't know if he's known as that, judging by Ty's face.
Who calls him that? I mean, like he's pitched
he is.
many game 7s, but
I don't know. Some
don't know
maybe just Jonny Heller know him as Mr. Game 7. He's been clutch in the playoffs. He pitched Game 7 of the World Series when the Astros won, right?
Yeah, he closed it out.
Yeah. He's Mr. Game 7.
Yeah, I guess.
He's righty mad bum. Some argue. But anyways, he I think makes a lot of sense for the Phillies, depending on the price. I think we mentioned at the top of the episode that Drew Smyly signed with the Braves for $11 million. I think that probably means Morton's going to get north of $15 million. That's just a guess. I don't know.
Smyly, like, honestly, though, might be the next Morton. Like, not even all bits aside and everything. Like, there are a lot of parallels with Smyly and Morton with kind of coming up and being pretty highly touted, I believe, when they were younger, coming up and just kind of being soft tossers. And then they have a season in which they were injured, but when they did pitch, they threw like a lot harder than they had throughout their whole careers. And then team takes a bet on them and they go out and, I mean, we'll see with Smyly, but in Morton's case, he one of the better pitchers in baseball the last couple seasons. I think we could see something like that with Smyly if his stuff that he showed in 2020 is legit. He was throwing like 96. He was throwing like 96.
Yeah, people forget that the Phillies discovered Charlie Morton, and then let him go.
And Drew Smyly.
I was gonna say, and maybe they did the same with Drew Smyly. Gabe Kapler knew. That's all I'll say about that.
Looked a little bit like Cliff Lee out there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think like replacing Arrieta with someone like Morton just it makes his team so much better.
But is Morton even going to play this year? I know he's talked about
that's the
retirement. I don't think he would leave the Rays, to be honest. I think he's kind of happy where he is, and he will retire if the Rays don't offer him a competitive contract.
Yeah, that is definitely something to think about.
I mean, being on a team that the Phillies being a team he's played for before, maybe that helps their case.
Well, I think is it his family? Don't they live in like Delaware?
I
remember that. I remember that from the last time he was a free agent, and everyone thought the Phillies should have signed him, which
they should have.
They absolutely should have. Yeah, there was a report, I don't remember from who, that said he doesn't care as much about the money in a deal as he does like going to the right spot. And I don't know if the Phillies would be the right spot for him, just based on the kind of directionless direction that they are going right now. Who knows if they're a playoff contender next year? But we'll see. I think they should throw money his way and see what happens because he's really good. One last pitcher, a guy who came up with the Phillies, throws harder than any other Phillies pitcher ever. Not actually. Like Billy Wagner probably threw harder than him, but Ken Giles.
100 miles. 100 miles, Giles.
100 miles, Giles. He's yelled at a pitching coach. He's yelled at a manager. He's punched himself in the face. And now he's getting Tommy John surgery. Or he got it at the end of the season. So really, like signing Giles, it's similar to the idea of going to arbitration with Sir Anthony Dominguez and getting him a contract.
It's kind of similar to what teams might do with Canley from the Yankees,
right? And what the Padres did with Mike Clevenger. So ideally, if you're going to sign someone like Giles, you would give him a two-year deal. You're paying him the first year to not play, and then you're paying him the second year. Hope he is really good. What do you think about signing Giles this offseason?
I don't think they'll do it because they're going to. Is he going to pitch this season at all? No, this upcoming season?
I don't think he's supposed to. It was like late September that he got hurt.
Yeah, then he probably won't be. I don't think they'll do it just because of that. If they plan on keeping payroll down, I don't think they'll spend on a pitcher that's not going to pitch for them this year. Canley might pitch or probably will pitch later this season, so I think that would be a little more likely. I don't see it with Ken Giles. Another Philly that maybe they could lure Jeremy Hellickson out of retirement. Recently retired Phillies legend.
Is Aaron Harang pitching anymore?
Altair could pitch.
Fun fact: I did see someone in a grocery store by like Temple's campus in an Aaron Harang jersey, which I just had to like. Who watched Aaron Harang pitch and was like,
didn't he have a couple good starts for the Phillies? Yeah. And everyone's like, maybe they're going to trade him for value by the trade deadline. It was like,
well, all right. Here's like a legitimate like kind of it would wow people, but a tiny chance it could happen is Vance Worley during the season. There were videos of him throwing bullpen, throwing like 98 miles per hour. Maybe he's developed a little bit of a cutter. Maybe he pitches for the Phillies, take a flyer on him.
A renaissance of sorts.
Yeah.
I think they should bring him back.
Put the glasses on, see what happens.
Pitchers with glasses, this is my thing. Maybe it's because I wear them. Pitchers with glasses are pretty much always really good.
Yeah. When Ty put those glasses on the mound and threw the knuckleball, no one was hitting him. Like,
no, pitchers with glasses though, they're almost guaranteed to be good. I mean, you ever see Major League?
That's all the proof you need. We'll see. It should be an interesting offseason overall. It'd be cool, I think, if they were to bring like anyone back, any former Philly back. On that note, though, that'll do it for this episode of the Phillies Nation podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. Next week, I doubt there will be that much that happens between this week and next week, only because it's kind of a holiday weekend-ish. But maybe something will. And if not, we'll have plenty to talk about because it is Jimmy Rollins month. So maybe we'll do a little special Jimmy Rollins episode. Talk to you next week.